الحمد لله وكفى وسلام على عباده الذين اصطفى أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا إن جاءكم فاسق بنبأ فتبينوا أن تصيبوا قوما بجهالة فتصبحوا على ما فعلتم نادمين واعلموا أن فيكم رسول الله لو يطيعكم في كثير من الأمر لعنتم ولكن الله حبب إليكم الإيمان وزينه في قلوبكم وكره إليكم الكفر والفسوق والعصيان أولئك هم الراشدون فضلا من الله ونعمه والله عليم حكيم صدق الله العظيم. Respected elders, dear brothers and sisters, we have come to the next portion of Surah Al-Hujurat. These ayat, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala instructs us mu'mineen and believers to be very careful when it comes to information. That we should always verify information before we either believe it. And more than that, we should try to verify before we spread it. Because many a times, if information is not verified, or at least the source from which we are getting the information is not an authentic source, then many a times this can lead to many different types of difficulties. It can have very detrimental outcomes. Information is something that as human beings, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He has given us human beings this ability to communicate. عَلَّمَهُ الْبَيَانِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala taught human beings this amazing gift of bayan. And with this, we are able to express ourselves, we're able to express events. We're able to explain many different things in various forms. Many a times, the very information that we are expressing or explaining, if that information is not accurate, or that information, if it is not verified and it is wrong, then it can have the results that we did not desire, or many a times it can have very negative results. There was an incident at the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam deputed a Sahabi to one qabila, one tribe. And the Sahabi, his job was to go and collect zakah from that qabila, from that tribe. The tribe knew that a person was supposed to come and collect the zakah. So they were waiting. And they saw the Sahabi from a distance, and they realized that the Sahabi is coming for the zakah, to take the zakah. One of the qualities of this tribe, which was a very beautiful quality, is that they had the quality of hospitality. And what they used to do is if an important guest was coming, this was kind of a normal quality at that time. If a very important guest was coming, so the people would come out of their homes, sometimes come out of the village area and welcome the guest. And this was kind of a general tradition at that time. Even when Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he migrated, he did hijrah from Mecca to Medina. We know that there were already Sahaba, there were Sahaba that were deputed before, and many of the people of Medina, they were waiting for Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. They had heard the news that he was coming. So they used to wait outside of their homes, used to go to the hillside waiting. And we even know of the famous poem that they recited when they saw Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Tala'a al-badru alayna in Saniyat al-wada. It's a famous poem. But this was kind of a custom at that time, that if an important guest was coming to you, so that people would go out of their town and go and welcome the guest. Sometimes in some cultures and in some of the tribes, they used to have a kind of display honoring the guest or welcoming the guest. And many a times the display was not like the display of today. But they used to kind of have these cultural, you call them dance, but it was a cultural movement that they used to do, holding their weapons and kind of showing a honorable system in welcoming a guest. So this Qabila, this tribe, the people of this tribe, they came out of their homes, they came out of the village to welcome the guest of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, to welcome this Sahabi. This Sahabi, he was not fully aware of the custom of this village, and he saw the people of the village were holding their weapons. They were kind of displaying their happiness. And the Sahabi, he mistook that they were holding their weapons, they're standing outside their homes. Looks kind of dangerous. If you see, for those who are not familiar with it, if you see some of the way that they display their happiness with their weapons and their movements, a person may get the misinformation that these people are preparing to attack. So this Sahabi, he also got this notion that these people are standing outside their home, they're holding their weapons, they're having this kind of dance, which also used to be a military dance. It's not necessarily a dance, kind of movements that they were showing. Similar movements were done at the time of military to show off military strength and power. So the Sahabi, he got this notion that they're going to attack me. So he went back. For his own safety, he went back to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And he did this without verifying what was going on. In fear, he left. The people of the Qabila got a little surprised. People of the village got surprised that where did he go? Why did he leave? They were looking at one another. What happened? So when the Sahabi came back to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he explained to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam that we had a pact with these people. I went to go pick up their zakat. This is what they displayed, and I was afraid for my life. So I came back, and he kind of made it clear that these were the movements they were making. They were holding their weapons like this, and made it clear that they were going to attack me. So Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he immediately gathered a small group of Sahaba, kind of like a small army, and he went to that Qabila. Because it was understood that they were supposed to give zakah, and they were believers, so there was something going on. There was a misunderstanding. That are they really trying to attack the Muslims? Is this what their intent was? And sometimes in military strategy, you also have to be prepared. You have to keep your defenses always ready. So Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he went to that Qabila with the army, including the Sahabi as well. When they went to that Qabila, they sent someone Again, the Qabila, the people of the tribe said, oh, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is here. Some other great Sahaba are here. They again came out of their home. They were very happy. Again, they were holding their weapons. So Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam sent a delegate to go find out what is going on. Are they really trying to fight us? So the Sahabi went there. He asked about them. They said, what are you talking about, attack? We're so happy to see you. This is how we display our happiness. What are you talking about? You know? They were kind of, in the minds of this tribe, it was so simple. They didn't have this notion that we're going to attack you. He said, this is how we're displaying our happiness. That Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam sent us an honorable messenger, sent us an honorable guest to come pick up our zakah. We came out of our homes to welcome him. And he left. And now we see that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is here. Some other great Sahaba are here. We're so happy to see you. Come. They welcomed them, you know. And they welcomed them. They had, you know, the misunderstanding was removed. There was great hospitality and everything was shared. And they also gave their zakah, and they were, you know, they said that, sorry for the misunderstanding. We didn't know this was going to cause such a ruckus. We wouldn't have done something like this. So in this connection, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed also this ayah. And this ayah in Surah Al-Hujurat, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us, Ya ayyuhal ladhina amanu, O those of you who believe, in ja'akum fasiqum binaba'in, if a fasiq comes to you with some information. The word fasiq, it has many meanings. And generally negative meanings. It can mean sinner, it can mean someone that is in a very impure state. One of the many meanings also is someone who may misunderstand the situation without getting authentication. He may spread information without confirmation. This can also, a person can fall into fisq. Because if you're getting information and you're spreading it without authentication, so you'll be spreading fitna, you'll be spreading fasad, you'll be spreading chaos and evil. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in this ayah of Surah Al-Hujurat that all those of you who believe, in ja'akum fasiqun, if a fasiq comes to you, binaba'in, with some information, with some news, fatabayyanu, then confirm it. Seek to confirm the information. Find out if it is true. Don't just act on it. Just seek to make sure that the information is true. And this should be generally our system. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَتَبَيَّنُوا, then confirm it. أَن تُصِيبُوا قَوْمًا بِجَهَالَةٍ, before you end up causing harm to people in ignorance. You may end up causing someone harm in ignorance. Someone comes to you and says, oh, you know what so-and-so said about you? And they tell you so much gossip and some lies, and you go and you hurt that person. And then you come to find out that's not even true. That person never said those things about you. That's why we should be very, very careful. Anyone brings us any information, try at least confirm it. We have been told in a hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, كَفَى بِالْمَرْءِ كَذِبًا أَنْ يُحَدِّثَ بِكُلِّ مَا سَمِعَ, or كَفَى بِالْمَرْءِ كِذْبًا أَنْ يُحَدِّثَ بِكُلِّ مَا سَمِعَ. There are two narrations. That it is sufficient as a lie if someone narrates what they hear, meaning without confirming. Or a person may be considered, it is sufficient for a person to be considered a liar if they just narrate what they hear without confirming. So we should always confirm. Not that you just hear something and you immediately act upon it, or you immediately just spread it. You should confirm, check, is it true, is it not true? Because it's amazing what information, how far information can change from person to person. It's amazing how information changes from person to person. There are so many social experiments that they have done. And you can see many of them, subhanallah, where they have a line of 50 people, or they make a line of 100 people each. All the people are backing one another. It's a line, everyone facing in one direction. Then what the person at the back of the line he does is he taps the person in front of him and he does some action. You know, he'll kind of maybe rub his eyes or something. And then he will turn around. So the person that he tapped, and showed him that he rubbed his eyes, this person's job is to pass that information to the person in front of him. So he'll tap the person in front of him and rub his eyes, meaning the person behind me told me to rub my eye, and he'll turn around. And as the information is going from person to person, by the time it gets to that 100th person, the action is completely distorted. The rubbing of the eyes turns into something else. And there's not one social experience, so many social experiments like this. Or that there's a person who's, driving a motorcycle supposedly, and then he tells the person in front of him that he's supposed to be driving his motorcycle, and then that person passes it on to the next one. By the time he gets to the person all the way in the front, the guy is doing some kind of jumping jacks or something, some exercise, totally different. So this is how social experiments, when they did in relation to information. So sometimes information going from one source to the next source, it gets distorted. Goes to the next source, it gets more distorted. By the time we hear it, we have heard the totally distorted version of it. So it is very important that we go and we confirm whether that information is true or not. This is the duty of a believer. This is also what's amazing about the Quran and about the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Is that the Quran, when it was revealed to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, so Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam passed it on to the Sahaba radiallahu anhum. And there were huffaz that memorized those ayat. And there were scribes that wrote down those ayat. And at the time of Sayyidina Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu, the Quran was compiled by those huffaz who had memorized it and the scribes. There were 12 scribes who were also huffaz. They had memorized the Quran and they had written the Quran. So their job to compile the Quran. And along with compiling the Quran, for every single ayah, they demanded someone to bring 2 witnesses with them. They had to be like witnesses that were there, that heard that verse from Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So that is why the Quran is the most authentic book in human history. There's no book like the Quran, as authentic as the Quran. So then the Quran was compiled. And then also we come to the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. In the Sunnah we have the ahadith, the traditions of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. In that we have so many books. There are hundreds of books of ahadith, some 300 or more books of ahadith. And if you take out all of where the hadith is reported multiple times, if you take out so if you take that out, you take every hadith as one narration, so you have over 700,000 ahadiths, more than 750,000 sahih ahadith. But coming to that, we have the Sahih Sitta, the 6 most authentic books of ahadith. And we're all familiar with Sahih Bukhari and Sahih Muslim and Abu Dawood and Tirmidhi, Ibn Majah and Nasa'i. And so we're all familiar with them. But we have to understand also that why are they considered the most authentic? What kind of effort did these shuyukh make that made their books and their collections the most authentic? Go and read the biography of these mashayikh. We're all familiar with Muhammad ibn Ismail, rahimahullah, and with others. Go and read their biography. How much care was taken in compiling Bukhari and the compilation of Sahih Muslim, widely known as Sahih and Sahihain. That they used to hear a hadith from their teachers, these mashayikh, they would hear a hadith from their teachers, they would memorize the hadith. Then they went on a journey to authenticate it. That, okay, my shaykh told me he heard this hadith from that shaykh. Okay, so they would go, travel to that shaykh. Okay, did you hear this hadith? What is the source? How is the source? And they would verify the authenticity of the person who was telling them this hadith. That in this person's life, have they ever told a lie? Have they ever had any episode of weak memory? What is the relation? And they used to compile the rijal, or the men who are relating these hadith. And they would comment on them, that such and such a person, we have found that his memory was not strong, that we found something weak in their memory. Or that this person heard the hadith, but he was not sure about the exact words because you couldn't remember the exact words. These are all things documented. Eventually, they would go all the way to the source of the hadith and they would make sure and verify that the person that they're getting the hadith from is someone to be trustworthy. If it was not someone trustworthy, then they were very careful to include that. They would keep the hadith, they said this is a hadith, but they would be careful to narrate it as 100% authentic. And that is why these are known, because they would go and verify. So this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has instructed us in the Quran, that all those of you who believe, when someone brings you a piece of information, make sure you authenticate it. Don't just spread it. We are in a time where we are living through a pandemic. In the month of May, year 2020. And there's so much misinformation going on. A lot of these conspiracy theories that are spreading. People have their own ideas about what this is and what is going on and how it started. And people are making it seem like this is the first time in human history there's ever been an epidemic or a pandemic. Epidemics are known in human, go back in human history how many times epidemics have come. Even at the time of Sahaba radiallahu anhum, even before that, even epidemics are mentioned in the Quran. There were aqwam in nations that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would send an epidemic against them. They're mentioned in Surah Al-Baqarah. So it's not something unknown. But now people have their own notion related to how this pandemic was started somewhere by some human intervention, and this is some ploy to make people vaccinate or something. People come up with their own ideas. They attach all these different things to how their own ideas of how medicine works. Try to understand epidemics and these kind of waba. It has been mentioned in the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. There's a mention of it in the Quran. And also throughout history. It's not something unknown. Even 100 years ago, in 1917, there was a very famous Spanish flu. In 1918, it killed 50 million people, infected over 500 million people. It was very, very lethal. It killed over 50 million, infected over 500 million worldwide. So it's not something new that these kind of epidemics happen. It's not like the first time an epidemic or a pandemic is happening. There have been many other pandemics that have taken over the world also. The very famous Spanish flu is one of them, went over worldwide. You have the bubonic plague, the Black Death, very famous in 1600s, and many others. Very deadly, very, very deadly. They don't kill a few thousand or a few 100,000. They kill in millions, especially once it mutates. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect all of us. And this is the fear that everyone is having, that if we end up opening up and everybody starts not following these social rules and not keeping distance, that this thing may have a chance to mutate. And if it mutates, that's what happened with the Spanish flu. Once the restrictions were lifted, everyone came out to the streets, and then that's when it mutated and started killing in large numbers. So there's always this fear. We should be very, very, very careful in what we accept from these conspiracy theories, that this was some man-made thing, or that this is some ploy to have people, this is some ploy by some group that they want to have some new world order and shut down the world. These things is, be careful what you believe. And be careful what you listen to. Make sure that you can verify. Even common sense, some of the things they say even common sense cannot accept. That you will destroy the economy of a country just so you can make some, come on. Which country would even come? Common sense will tell you no country would allow their own economy to be destroyed or their own people to be killed. Even common sense doesn't go with some of these things. So this is what our deen teaches. As Muslims, we should be we should be more careful. And anything we hear, we should go verify. Is this true? Or go ask the experts if we don't know. Ask them that what is the reality of this particular thing that this particular person is talking about. We should verify. We should not just start spreading, especially now with today's social media, mashallah. With one click, you can make 100 people see what you're talking about. With no verification. And then everybody wants to comment on it also. Subhanallah. So it's the job of a believer. We should not fall into the category of becoming liars. This is the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, that it is sufficient for a person to be considered a liar if you just narrate whatever you hear. You just basically share in this time and age. Share without confirming any of this information this person is saying. Is it true or not? If it is not true, don't share it. Or at least try to, if you cannot verify it, then don't share it. Because if we cannot verify it, by you sharing it again, there's a chance you may be spreading something that is not true. So we should take a lesson from our great mashayikh, how careful they were with information, how careful they were with authenticity. We should be very, very careful with authenticity. A Muslim should be very trustworthy. The major qualities of a believer is that they are trustworthy. In order to be trustworthy, we should be very, very, very careful what kind of information we spread. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give all of us understanding and give us the tawfiq to practice His deen. وَمَا عَلَيْنَا إِلَّا الْبَلَاغِ. We'll read a hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم. أما بعد. عن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه يقول: قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم: لا تغبطوا فاجرا بنعمة إنك لا تدري من هو لاق بعد موته إن له عند الله قاتلا لا يموت أو كما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام. رواه الطبراني في الأوسط ورجاله ثقات. Sayyidina Abu Hurairah radiyallahu anhu, he narrates that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, and we should say sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, لا تغبطوا فاجرا بنعمة. Do not envy an evil person for some ni'mah, because of some favor or some good that he has, because of some well-being or some good life that they're living. Don't envy them. Don't be jealous of them. We should never be jealous of a sinner. Don't be jealous. لا تغبطوا فاجرا. Never be jealous or never envy a fajir. Never envy an evildoer, a sinner. Never envy them. بنعمة, because of some ni'mah, some well-being, some good life that they're living. إنك لا تدري من هو ناق بعد موته. Because you don't know what this person is going to meet with after his death. You do not know what is waiting for this person after his death, what kind of punishment this fajir, sinner or disbeliever will have to meet with after his death. Inna lahu inda Allahi qatilan. For this person he has with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has for such a person qatilan la yamut. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has such a punishment for this person that that punishment kills a person without, like qatilan will destroy him without killing him. The person will not be able to die. the case of the fire of Jahannam, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has prepared the fire of Jahannam for the disbelievers. And the fire of Jahannam is such a thing that it will kill, but the person will not die. All of the avenues of death will be there, but a person will not die. Because in the fire of Jahannam, those who are there, they will not be dying, but they'll be facing every single avenue that can kill a person. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala save and protect all of us from the fire of Jahannam. But this hadith is a very clear indication that we should not envy and be jealous of all of these kuffar and disbelievers, the wealthy and the prominent and all of these famous. If they're disbelievers, you should never ever envy them. Never be jealous of them. Oh, look, that person has so much fame, that there's so many people talking about him, and there's some celebrity or some star or some player or whatever they might be. Or that person has so much wealth and that he's so famous because of this wealth. That will never ever envy. If the person is a kafir, fajr, he's a disbeliever, he's a sinful person, and we can even see them involved in sin. Many of them you'll see. Those who are famous, you can always see the kind of company they keep, the places they go to. A believer should never, as a Muslim, a mu'min should never envy a sinner. He should never envy a kafir, a disbeliever. This is what our deen teaches us. Because we have to understand and we have to remember that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the Quran. Tonight, we'll be reciting Surah Al-Mu'minun and Surah An-Nur and the portion of Surah Al-Furqan. And in these ayat, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He tells us in the beginning of Surah Al-Mu'minun, قَدْ أَفْلَحَ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ. Definitely successful are the believers. And the believers have very, very particular qualities. So then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions the many qualities of the believers. قَدْ أَفْلَحَ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ الَّذِينَ هُمْ فِي صَلَاتِهِمْ خَاشِعُونَ. Definitely successful are the believers. Those believers who with their salah, they're very devoted in their salah. That is why we should pray our salah with great khushu', with great devotion, concentration. We should not be praying salah and be distracted by everything. No. There's a quality of believers. الَّذِينَ هُمْ فِي صَلَاتِهِمْ خَاشِعُونَ وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ عَنِ اللَّغْوِ مُعْرِضُونَ. The believers are those who turn away from laghu. Laghu is any kind of pursuit that has absolutely no benefit and becomes a waste of time. It has absolutely no benefit. It does not give you any good information. It's not good for your health. It's not good for your mind. It's not good for anything. It's just a useless pursuit. And the person is, so a believer is one who turns away from from all this laghu. And part of that is also, for example, to give you an example of laghu, there's some people who go after trying to learn as much as they can about these famous people. What do they call them? These celebrities. These celebrities. They go or these players of some teams and some games. So they will know the name of every single player. SubhanAllah, I met one youth, young youth. He was young, hardly a teenager, and he was able to name for me how many teams there are. I believe it was soccer, it was football. He was telling me how many teams there are, and in what team, which players are playing. And then he was able to tell me their statistics of, I don't know what kind of numbers they have, but the statistics of which player had the highest chance of scoring particular points. I don't play sports. I'm not into that. I don't watch sports. I play them. I don't watch sports. But this person has such an extraordinary memory that he was able to sit there and quote for me names and statistics and which game they played in, which game certain player made certain score in, and which teams he liked and why he liked them, and which teams he didn't. Even the teams he didn't like, he was able to quote their players and their statistics and why he didn't like that. So, subhanallah. And this is lahu. How does any of this information help a person? This is part of lahu. You're going after, and he was even able to tell me their salaries and why they're so famous and in which game they signed how many. Useless information. This is that ilm la yanfa'. This is that knowledge that doesn't help anyone. So he was going around with this kind of information. When we asked him how much of the Quran he knew, or if he knew any hadith, or if he knew the names of any Sahaba, we were surprised that he knew very little, very, very little. So this is part of lahu. This is how lahu works. It can consume a person. Believers are those, stay away from this kind of lahu. And many of these, there are many games and there are many sports where there are Muslim players and they're very righteous and we have utmost respect for them. Many of them are very pious. They take care of their salah. They're very particular with their ibadah. They don't involve in all of the evil and the khurafat that is there. They try their best to stay as clean. They're very careful with their wealth. They give in charity. There are many, 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 many Muslim sports who are involved in sports. They're very, very great people. But even they will tell you to spend your time in learning and in ibadah. But to have this kind of unnecessary lahu, a believer should not get involved in this. And a believer should never have envy for the disbelievers that so some person has fame or wealth or whatever it might be. A believer should not make that a point of envy. For a believer, they should see who is more righteous than them, who knows more Quran than me, who has more knowledge than me, who does more ibadah than me, who is closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala than me. That is what a believer should be checking, and how the believer should be looking at being able to gain benefit from those people and also get close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us understanding and give all of us the tawfiq to practice His deen. وَمَا عَلَيْنَا إِلَّا الْبَلَاغُ. سبحان الله وبحمده سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك.